Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Brandon, and welcome to Audio Addiction. We have our very good friend Paul from the Wise Man Fears and Whale Bones again. We can't not have him on this channel. I feel like
I
I've,
keep sending emails and asking to be on the show, and they're too nice to say no.
I feel like it would be a disservice if he was not helping me review this album. As you can tell by the album artwork, it's Make Them Suffer. Old Souls and Lord of Woe. Um, I know they redid it. They only released one new track, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, Paul?
Yeah, ether, however you pronounce it.
Ether. I think it's Ether. But anyway,
It's either.
I either or. Anyway, so I enlisted the help of Paul since he is a Make Them Suffer fangirl, and I am a pleb of the Make Them Suffer boot camp. So, oh dang, okay, girl, I see you. Oh, he's got that shirt, so you know he's
That's
legit.
right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a pleb when it comes to this whole Make Them Suffer band. I just got into them actually when they announced this album. I had not listened to him. I listened to him sporadically, but I really hadn't like focused in and really listened to him before this one. So I was like, Paul likes Make Them Suffer. Let's get him on here because like I don't know all the like backstories in terms of lyrics and stuff like that, and he knows a lot more about that. So um, let's move right into it. So
Heck
the
yeah.
let me get the track list up on my other computer over here because I'm professional here, and that's pretty much it. But Paul, how about you give us a little biography of Make Them Suffer?
Oh, for sure. So yeah, they're like you said, they're from Australia. I think Perth, and they're they're this kind of weird in between of like deathcore, um, some metalcore, and then just a little bit of like weird experimental influences now, especially now. So they started out as pretty much just like straight up deathcore, um, but now, especially with the release of Ether, they've transcended that and they're sort of like pushing new boundaries. And that was pretty evident with Old Souls, as they would have some songs that were just like a bunch of blast beats and like crazy breakdowns, but then other songs that were, either instrumental and like really chill or a lot of singing, just kind of bouncing all over the place. So yeah, I think Lord of Woe was initially released in like 2009 or 10, something a long time
Yeah,
ago.
I think it was 2010 because I just looked it up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think it was unreleased. Well, it wasn't released. They weren't signed, and then um, Old Souls is their most recent. Besides, this obviously culmination of the EP and Old Souls. I know they had another album in between that, which you showed on your shirt, Never
Oh yeah.
Bloom. That was the one that I didn't check out, but I think that one is also a good one. Um, but we also recommend that you check out. I think it's on Reddit. It might be a little bit far back, but they might have resurfaced after this was released. But I know there are some backstories to the whole. I don't know if is it this album in particular, Old Souls, or is it like Never Bloom and Old Souls?
It's kind of all three actually, which is
Okay.
like in my opinion the most remarkable thing about the band is like they launched this whole sort of like epic storyline with their EP that basically just focused on this one character, the Lord of Woe, that it was titled after, and it was really dark and it fit the like musically it matched it. It was like very ominous and heavy and just like nasty, lyrically very mean, but very still like, pretty poetic and by no means shallow lyrics. They're all, very, very well done lyrics, but all very similarly themed. And then that same cast of characters moved over to Neverbloom, which sort of gave the backstory on why the Lord of Woe was like so embittered and jaded and whatnot. And that it really like expounded on the backstory and helped bring you into his mind and get his perspective. And then Old Souls was really it was like a bizarre twist for me at least coming into it, having only really listened to Neverbloom a lot because all of their like themes and their artwork and style and all that stuff had been sort of using this medieval sort of like sorceress, dark-looking artwork and themes and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, like Old Souls came along, and it's like World War One storyline. And at first, I was like, "What happened?" That's like so weird. But they went on to reveal that it was actually the same exact storyline, but it was like shown in a parallel form. So it's like the same characters are now being represented by like people in this time and place, rather than just sort of like these abstractions that they were initially using to tell the story. So they're all like very strongly linked, and they use self-reference and allusion across albums to like, make certain lines like double impactful, because it's like, oh, like this would be a crazy line in and of itself, but then when you realize that this word in this album is symbolic for that, it's like, it's like, yeah, so meta.
It is literally crazy. I would probably put them in terms of music, especially lyrically. They're probably in the top at least 10 in terms of just how they take kind of a concept and add along to it, and just take it in a different direction altogether, and kind of adding pieces of the puzzle together. And then hopefully once they finish making albums and stuff, and maybe when they're finished doing it, obviously it'll come full circle kind of a thing. And I'm excited to see what they did. I definitely checked out. I would say I enjoyed the first half Old Souls a lot more than the older stuff, Lord of Woe. But I still enjoy their stuff. I personally am not like the biggest fan of deathcore, but for some reason these guys like have some sort of like gravitational pull in terms of like they have that deathcore element to it, but it's not just all just deathcore. It's not just like there are some cleans. I don't know what the girl's name is, but she plays piano, and she also does a little bit of cleans. That's really evident in Ether, the track that they released, actually one of the newer tracks. But you can definitely tell that they're kind of adding more melodic elements to it, as well as still retaining some of the heaviness that they're known for. And I know like some people were not necessarily happy with the sound change that they went through, but I like the direction that they're going, and I also enjoy their older stuff as well. But we'll move into the first track, which is Forward, and it kind of starts off a little eerie with that piano. I think that's one cool bit about this band that I enjoy the most. When you listen to a deathcore band, names that come to mind for me at least are like Chelsea Grin. I don't know if Whitechapel's as deathcore as they used to be. I know they kind of mellowed out a little bit, but
Sure.
those are the types of bands that resonate with me when I think about deathcore. So it's cool to see piano in a different kind of light, as well as I like the elements that she adds into it. I feel like it adds kind of a different, like, it paints a different picture. It adds like some more like ambience to the rest of the sound, and just the whole album in general. Like there are just some parts where you're like, man, this is really heavy, but then it sounds really like melodic when like the piano kicks in and stuff like that. And that's what I was thinking of when I was like driving home from work tonight. Like I was just like, ooh, I like that, like that juxtaposition of like a really melodic piano line with like some heavy like guitar parts and some screaming. I feel like that's a excellent combination and should probably be utilized some more. But Paul, do you have any thoughts on the first track for Forward?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like even their intro track, it's only a minute and change long, I think, but it's already like packed with meaning. It's the way this album's structured is it's telling the story of this guy who went to war and came back with PTSD from the war, but it's telling it in reverse order through the perspective of his wife. So
oh wow.
So Forward is it starts like, old friend, let's start again, gather your stories, I'll try not to spoil the end. So it's like the old woman, or the wife whose husband's long since dead, but in her old age recollecting everything that's happened. It's basically like prepping the listener to go into this album and like see what led up to this point, much like kind of how Never Bloom sort of reverse displayed what Lord of Woe was about a little bit.
That's
so,
that's just a in and of itself is a cool concept. I feel like
Oh yeah,
creativity wise, they have to be like, again, I said they got to be in like the top 10 in terms of just
totally.
thought process, like lyrically, just how things are worked out. I really appreciate that. I'm not. I mean, I do write some lyrics, but I'm not very good at it. But I can imagine that you, considering that you write for the Wise Man Fears in terms of lyrics, I'm sure you take that into account and stuff like that. And that's amazing. I definitely enjoy that, and it's something that I didn't really think about because when you think about like just music concepts and stuff like that, it's either like bare bones or like they do put some thought into it or something like that. But I feel like they're taking it even a step further and just adding like storylines to it and then
Oh
adding
yeah.
like alternates to that storyline. I feel like that's a cool concept that not too many bands touch because it's a hard it's definitely not an easy thing to like accomplish.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would. It's funny you say that. Like they're actually my number one inspiration for lyrics on a couple levels. Like, firstly with their storytelling, I think that's a lost art in a lot of music, especially um, a lot of the heavy stuff that you hear coming out nowadays. There's no real like life to it, no story to the lyrics. It's a bunch of like easy hateful phrases that have been sort of strung together.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to write lines for harsh lyrics. You can scream any line and you can make it sound cool if you sort of twist and morph the song the right way. But
Yeah.
like real genuine thought in lyrics beyond like girlfriend broke up with me and now I'm so upset. Like stuff that's just been
uh
done to death, but can still get by because it's whatever. It's passable. Stuff that transcends that and really does something remarkable and something ambitious like this that always catches my eye. So it's something I definitely have tried to emulate with the Wise Man's Fear, and even they oh yeah, just like the combination that they strike, the balance between like very like poetic, very just sort of like big words,
yeah.
great syntax, all this like very complex language, and then
Yeah.
just mixed with like the borderline simplistic but like simply elegant stuff. So, you know, some of the most impactful lines are like just very straightforward, small phrases that are like, like say it to my face, and then other stuff is like, this is like beyond these weeping wastelands, just like all this super kind of out there poetic stuff. So they do a great job hitting the balance, so you don't feel like um, you don't feel emotionally detached as a listener because it's all too formal and all too wordy. But then at the
Yeah.
same time, you don't feel like it's dumbed down or that they aren't super intelligent. So I appreciate that about them for sure.
No, I totally get that as well, especially when listening to it. Yeah, you can definitely tell they put a lot of thought, obviously a lot of thought into the lyrics. In fact, I think they probably put more thought into the lyrics than they did writing wise. Not to say that the writing's bad, but I just feel like overall, um, that's just how it is. And we'll move in on
Yep.
the second track, Requiem. Um, I don't like. I listen to him in the car, but I can't like look at the track list. So like, I'm looking at these tracks and I'm like, ooh, I like. Ooh, I don't even remember the name of that one. I think I like that one. Like, it's so
Yeah.
hard for me to pick it out, and I know I obviously enlisted your help because you know the tracks very well. Um,
Yeah.
but why don't you give us a little bit of synopsis on two Requiem?
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. This was the second single that they released for the album, and I think they kind of did it to like assuage people's fears because the first single they put out was a very metalcore song called "Let Me In." Like it had cleans on it, like
Yeah,
heaven
yeah,
forbid, and it's just like it was not the like blistering deathcore that people were expecting. And then they put this one out as a follow up to that, and everyone's kind of like, okay, we can chill out. Like there's some heavy stuff on the record. So it definitely, it comes in with a kick and really sets the record off. But sort of conceptually, this song is like the act of the protagonist committing suicide, which is a really weird way to start a record. But like I said,
yeah,
it's all being told backwards. So they're spoiling the plot twist right off the beginning so that the focus of the story is not the plot. The focus is the characters and like the emotions fueling the plot trajectory. So you've got yeah, track one, you're being told like listen to what's happened. Track two is like the the dude about which the rest of the album is pretty much written like kills himself and leaves that song as his requiem to his wife.
Oh wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, and it's it's a pretty heavy, like sort of like almost self-hateful at times. It's like you can
Yeah.
see why this guy, how this guy got to be where he is. And yeah, it's cool. They use like some Latin phrases in it too.
Oh wow. Okay.
And at one point, yeah, it's kind of like a pre-chorus deal. I looked him up at one point, um, and it was like time, the devourer of all, like something, something, like just really like crazy poetic stuff. So like I was saying, they sort of hit that like super highbrow, um, wordy language, and then at the same time they can pull it right back and just like absolutely slam with some simple, easy lines and make it super impactful.
Yeah, and I honestly didn't know it. Again, I'm gonna keep referencing that I don't know anything about it because
Sure,
lyrically,
sure.
I've only probably been listening to this album for a couple days now. But I
Mhm.
wanted to have somebody who knows kind of like in terms of lyrically where they're coming from and stuff like that. I feel like that kind of adds another dimension to just overall listening to it. I can say, oh yeah, it's real heavy. I like that. Like breakdowns are cool. Drum
We got
patterns,
piano too.
piano's
Yeah,
cool. Like I could say all that stuff, but at the end of the day, like it doesn't mean as much as like, oh well, this just how the story's being told, and like I'm learning a lot as we go along anyway. But like as this story is being told, like it's definitely a cool, it's an amazing concept, and I applaud them tremendously. I think it's definitely uh not safe, like in terms of
yeah.
lyrically, like it's very out there. Just
Oh yeah.
like even if you watch a movie, like they don't show like the ending of the movie and then you just watch from the beginning. I feel like that's a cool
Yeah.
concept, like like as being a person from the outside and then like listening and kind of getting in the thought of like how this happens, like why did it happen like this, and stuff like that. I feel like that's, again, it's all comes with the storytelling and stuff like that, and I feel like that this is what separates this band from any other band that I have listened to in a long time, just
Mhm.
based off of like this and what you're telling me. I think that's a monumental thing that, again, like you said, it's kind of like a dying art. And
Totally.
definitely I'm excited to see what they do, and how the rest of this album progresses. But we'll move on to track number 3, which is Fake. So you can give a little thought on that as well.
Sure, sure. Yeah, Fake is definitely, in my opinion, one of the heavier ones on the record. No
Yeah.
cleans, just some creepy piano, but nothing like melodic or ethereal like they do in some other parts. But yeah, it's also one of my favorite tracks just because it hits so hard. It's one of my favorite balances of, um, their chorus is just a mean like say it to my face, but then yeah, conceptually, it's really cool too because it's like, as the successor of Requiem, you see the events that led right up into the point where the protagonist killed himself. And what it is this dude essentially like bossing and abusing his wife around. And
Yeah.
it's, yeah, the sort of like chorus lyrics are, don't trust anyone, stay outside or stay inside and be conditioned to be a fake. So sort of the theory amongst listeners is that um, this dude has sort of abused his wife and forced her into this, corner of life, and he's, like conditioning her to live the way that he wants and all this stuff. And so yeah, um, and it stems from, as we'll learn later on, some like PTSD and alcoholism, and there's a whole cocktail of issues that this guy has, but it's sort of the culmination of everything that goes wrong that leads up to him killing himself. It's like in this supercharged, intense song. So it makes perfect sense that it's a really like violent, angry song.
Yeah. Of course. And also, I forgot to mention it. One of the music videos, I don't know which song it's for, but that kind of also tells the tale of, like for me, it's more of a visual thing, and while listening to
Yeah.
the track, it's like, oh well, that's what he meant by this and stuff like that. I'm not exactly sure what track it was on YouTube. I'll have to try to find it. But there, when you were mentioning that, I was like, ooh, well, like, in the music video, like, you see him like beating his wife, and then like at the end of the video, he like winds up killing himself and stuff like that. And you sort of see that, and you can definitely obviously you've mentioned that it's a very dark sort of album, but I feel like when you see it in video form, it kind of intensifies everything. And obviously, like if you see a scary movie, obviously that your feelings are gonna be the same, especially if like there is some like you know like scary music in the background. You're definitely gonna be more afraid when you're watching it than if there was like no music at all. So I feel like them attaching sort of the video to the rest, well, some if not all the tracks on here, I feel like that kind of again paints a picture in terms of like how that happened again, and how we got to this point and stuff like that. So I just
Totally.
figure I mentioned that as well. So we'll
Yeah.
move on to track number 4 is "Let Me In." I think that was the music video track, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. So,
Yeah, that's the one.
but what's your thoughts on that one, Paul?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the music video because that thing is just absolutely packed with symbolism. Like, um, yeah, it even references previous music videos from Never Bloom.
Oh,
That
okay,
and
wow.
it shows, yeah, it shows some of the parallels between how like in Never Bloom the story is between this sort of protagonist, the Lord of Woe, who like his love was lost and now he's languishing in this terrible place, and then the woman whom he loved, who they call Maro, that's sort of
Okay.
like her lyrical name. So there's a the theory for Old Souls is that the main character who ends up killing himself is the Lord of Woe, or is sort of like inhabited by the Lord of Woe, and then the woman that is his wife that he abuses and all this stuff, she's Maro. And yeah, I mean, I'll delve into that more as the album progresses as we talk about it. But so for Let Me In, it's this crazy juxtaposition between um, this really like resentful feeling, and then obviously right before it comes fake. So it's like there's this weird blurring of lines between like anger and hatred, and then extreme remorse and regret and all this stuff. But the crux of the track is the protagonist has realized that he's been a terrible person. He's an alcoholic and he's been abusing his wife, and so he's struggling. He's saying, like, please forgive me, but then at the same time, like, you deserve better. Like, go find somebody better. Don't let me, be this obstacle in your life anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of tragic in that sense, and it has a sort of a bipolar feel at times. Um, yeah, because like he'll use the phrase "let me in, just let me go," like almost back to back. So it's like he can't decide what he wants for himself. But that bipolarity ends up playing a really strong theme in the album as well, which we'll see a couple tracks later. Yeah, it's in short, it's kind of him struggling with himself, and it's the battle of his will for what's best for her versus what he wants for himself.
Yeah, I totally got that vibe as well, even not knowing the premise behind, obviously the tracks and stuff like that. But you can definitely kind of get that sort of vibe when you watch the video. When you listen to the track, it kind of has, again, that sort of symbolism to it. As well as, I would say that this one is a little bit more melodic than I would say the rest of the tracks.
Totally.
There are
Totally.
a lot more piano. It's a little bit more, it's not as more deathcore. I feel like, again, it's more,
Yeah.
I mean, it does have deathcore elements, obviously, but again, I feel like it's like more in that deathcore melodic area, sort of a thing. And again, I
Yeah.
feel like that piano kind of adds that melodic feel to it, which I really appreciate immensely. But I'd probably say this one's one of my favorite tracks. But
Yeah.
and we'll move it on a little bit later to another one of my favorites. But track number 5, which is Threads. Do you
Mhm.
know what's the backstory behind that one, Paul?
Um, it's a lot of the same sort of
Same
him,
thing.
the protagonist struggling with his demons. Um, yeah, the sort of key phrase in that song is "this darkness ahead picks my tissue to threads." So it's an allusion to mental illness, is how it seems, in that he's struggling with like bipolar or schizophrenia,
Yeah.
but also like alcoholism, as is alluded to elsewhere in the album. And even so in the Let Me In music video, there are even these flashes where in the background of a scene you'll see like a figure in a dark cloak, like not super highlighted or anything, just like kind of there for a second then gone, and it's all allusion to how in Neverbloom,
Yeah, I was
like the
gonna
Lord
say.
of the Lord of Woe is kind of like watching over in his life and um, ready to sabotage more or less. So Threads is a lot of the same as I was saying. It's this guy struggling with depression and trying to sort of rectify his relationship with his wife, but realizing ultimately that like he's not making progress.
Yeah, I also feel like as this the storytelling's going on and stuff like that, I also feel like there's just more depth when you
Mm.
talk about it and stuff like that and how I'm hearing it. I feel like again there's way more depth than how how you perceive the tracks. Like I could listen to the tracks and
Yeah,
come out with something different, but um, for the most
totally.
part, I think it's again excellently written, and I really enjoyed again the lyricism between both the videos that they put online as well as some of their taking some of their older tracks and older albums and stuff like that and kind of mixing everything together. I feel like again
Hmm.
that's a quality that not a lot of bands have, or if they do, they don't execute it very well. So
Right.
that's great. And we'll move on to track number 6, which is Through the Looking Glass. Is that more of the same, or when does it change from like
This
this part?
Totally. This is actually, believe it or not, this is the turning point of the album.
Okay.
And conceptually, what sort of my theory and a lot of people also think is that this is the point in the album at which the protagonist develops a split personality and like really begins to struggle with bipolarity and yeah, like the schizophrenic sort of demons that start to haunt him. So yeah, it's all pretty much instrumental, but it's very creepy, and the image it's sort of portraying is like him standing, looking in the mirror, and like seeing himself split into two people,
Yeah.
like the good person he wants to be, and then the terrible person that he sort of has become.
Would you say that the terrible person is kind of the Lord of Woe, the like in the video has like that, or is it somebody completely different?
It's the Lord of Woe in my opinion, and sort of the mythos that has gone into it is like people are saying this Lord of Woe concept is a cycle. So it inhabits a person and sort of exacts its revenge, and then when that person dies, it goes and like haunts another
Oh
person, sort of
wow.
like almost a possessive demon type deal. But
Yeah,
yeah, so he's sort of like the most recent victim, set in a time and place, a very specific time and place.
that's cool. That's cool. Definitely interesting.
Yeah.
And we'll move on to track number 7, which is actually I would say is my favorite track off the record. It's just got this heaviness to it, especially towards the breakdown part. And obviously, I'm going to be talking about more of the music, and Paul will have more of the lyricism. But
Yeah.
I this is probably my favorite track in terms of just like something that just gets you grooving, and like it just got this heavy breakdown that you don't expect or get from like um I guess per se like a typical like metalcore album. Like when I was listening to this like at home, I was just like, oh man, this is ridiculous. Like if they play this live, like if I go see them live, like I'm gonna be punching people in the face. Like I'm usually never like
We're
that,
gonna
but
die.
I was like
Yeah.
people are gonna die. Like you know what I mean? So I definitely enjoy this track. This is by far my favorite track off the record. But does it have any sort of lyricism? Again, like you said, Through the Looking Glass has that point where like personality wise he splits. So is this before when he's still suffering with that bipolarity?
Yeah, a lot of this song is addressing that split. So if you watch the music video, there's a sick video for this song. Half of the shots are done where every band member is wearing like sort of dark clothing in a really dim warehouse, and it's kind of
Yeah.
a creepy vibe. And the other half is done where everybody's wearing like straight jackets and they're in a padded room,
Oh wow.
and so it's like really just bringing to light the light and dark, the mental split. And even the last line of the song is the schizophrenia has got me pulling my eyes out, which is like just a really vivid image. But also in the video you see, and again, like some appearances of the Lord of Woe sort of in the background, and he dissolved into a flock of birds at one point. And yeah, it's it's just a really, really heavy song, as you were saying. There's a pretty freaking intense breakdown. But yeah, just dealing with this new sort of personality split, and even the way that the lines are composed. There's a lot of, for example, like to the friends in my head, let's endlessly talk. For the love of God, make them stop. So it's like they'll write different lines even in different verb tenses and like different pronouns, like we versus me versus him, and like it's just you're as a listener you're going along and you're trying to figure out like how many people are in that head of his, or like who's saying this stuff and who's he addressing. So it's all meant to be pretty chaotic and kind of terrifying.
Yeah, that's
So
cool. I actually didn't see the video for that, so I'll have to go check that out
oh,
because
it's something else.
I'm sure it's quite intense and stuff like that. So again, I think the coolest thing about this is just like in terms of when you're listening to it, just the imagery that it portrays. Like I feel like again, not a lot of bands do this in the way that like when you're listening to a track, you can imagine what things are going on, like how it's happening and stuff like that. I feel that is a cool niche that I feel like they hit very well, obviously, and I personally enjoy that, and I'll have to start listening to when they put out new stuff. I'm gonna have to listen to it more intently and put a little bit more thought into it for the next one, hopefully soon. But we'll move on to the eighth track, which is "Scraping the Barrel." Is that still a continuation of that, or is it? I mean, like, what can we expect, like, going on, like, for let's say the next uh four tracks? So like Marionette, Timeless, and Old Souls. Are they all continuing on that same path of him dealing with that dual personality, or what's going on
Um,
pretty much?
Not so much. So this one, there's a little departure here
Okay.
that sort of delves into another demon, which is his alcoholism. Um, so it's a pretty straightforward track. Patch it, plug it, try it. It's like him trying to fill a hole in his life with alcohol, and so it's basically meant to raise the question: what happened to this guy that he's now depressed and seeking some sort of comfort?
Yeah. I also feel like this one's another heavy one. I don't know if it's.
Totally.
I think this one is another great track, like musically, instrumentally wise. I really enjoyed that, and I like the back to back heavy tracks. I feel like that's a cool aspect again to this whole sort of thing, because again, it's talking about stuff that lyrically is heavy, but also musically heavy, and I feel like that kind of adds
Mm.
that sort of layer, another layer to the track. So I really enjoy that addition. So we'll move on to track number 9, which is Marionette. Is there any lyrical symbolism with this track?
So this one's about a puppeteer and his marionette, as the title suggests,
Yes.
and it's essentially just another callback to how this protagonist is sort of manipulating his wife, and she has to put on this happy face, as he, forces her to, deal with his problems and be there for him. So it's a kind of sad, but again very heavy track. Again, it alludes to some of the abuse and all that's happening, but it's largely written from her perspective this time,
Okay.
sort of showing what a monster he is.
Yeah. I also, again, like you said, is and also another heavy track as well. We'll move on to 10 and 11, Timeless and Old Souls. Is that like sort of the beginning of him, like, um, just like him realizing that he has, multiple problems? Like, obviously, he controls his wife and stuff like that, as well as, he has alcoholism, and then he has that kind of like split personality thing. Is this kind of like the beginning of these?
Yeah. So timeless is a little less conceptual. It's about essentially the guy, pondering on his love for the woman and being like, even though I've experienced some terrible stuff, our love's timeless. Really pretty straightforward. But Old Souls is really, in a lot of ways, the culmination of this album. Um, so here's where you get, and especially when paired with the music video, here's where you get the full story of what's been going on. And what you see is a guy that went out to war, saw his best friend get shot next to him, essentially, and he just gets like possessed by this rage and goes and guns down a bunch of people,
Yeah.
out of this vendetta against the people that killed his friend. And in the music video, actually, the scene in which his friend right next to him gets shot, he's writing out a love letter to his wife Annie, which is her name apparently. But if you look really closely, actually, all the lines on the letter that he's writing are the lyrics to track 4, which is "Let Me In." So it's just like it's a little fun self-reference thing they do. But yeah, this track is basically the catalyst of it all. He goes to war, he comes back, and he can't feel like he used to, and he like nothing's right. So he's bemoaning like, oh, the days when we laughed on and stayed up late, and
Yeah,
when
it's almost
basically
like
when they were old souls.
it's
Yeah,
almost like PTSD. Like again,
exactly.
it is war, and the only one that I can compare it to is a track by Silent Planet, Panic Room. Actually,
Yeah,
one of his friends had PTSD, and that when I was listening to Old Souls, I was like, ooh, this sounds like lyrically similar to Panic Room by Silent
yeah.
Planet. If you haven't checked out that band, check out that band. That one, they're
Or
amazing as well.
they're on tour together.
Oh, really? Nice. Oh, yeah, they
Yeah,
are. You're
with
right.
August Burns
They're
Red.
on tour.
Yeah,
We forgot to mention that they're on tour with August Burns Red, Erra, Silent Planet, and Make Them Suffer. They're all on one tour. So if that hits your area, definitely go check them out. And also, this is kind of like a little bit longer, more discussion sort of view, in terms of maybe not as much of a review as opposed to kind of getting an idea of how lyrically how they're like the basis for the tracks and stuff like that. And I didn't realize how deep some of the meanings were on this track. And I thank you, Paul, for helping me out on this. But it's really cool to see bands do this sort of thing where they take concepts, especially like a huge concept like this, and they just make it into multiple albums. I feel like this is probably one of the best bands that can do it and is doing it.
mm,
Um, but we'll get back into it. And the newest track is Ether. It actually splits Old Souls and Lord of Woe, their EP. And I think in terms of, if I'm not mistaken, or if I've read, it's on a completely different track than both the EP and Old Souls. Am
yeah.
I correct on that?
Yep. Yeah, they
Okay.
released it as a single pretty soon before they did the re-release of the bundle.
So does it have any like lyrical? It doesn't have any lyrical significance in terms of what the rest of the album sounds, or is it supposed to be a precursor for like I guess the next album that they'll be doing?
It's a little hard to say at this point, but there are definitely some hints and allusions within the song. So it talks about how the clouds are parting in the first verse,
Okay.
and a lot of people are thinking that's an allusion to the very first song on the EP, "Summoning Storms," because that song's talking
Oh
about like
yeah.
how the clouds are gathering. So a lot of people think they're about to sort of do a departure from uh, sort of the traditional Lord of Woe storyline and be like he's finally broken free of this curse and he's able to move on to better things. But then there's this really interesting passage in the song that's kind of like the chorus-ish, but it's like "Death embrace me, Izanagi take me, life embrace me, Izanami take me." And Izanagi and Izanami are apparently two Japanese gods, the gods of life and death,
Yeah.
but they're also male and female. So it's a lot of people are saying that it's like uh, they're like in the old Japanese lore, the god of life like travels down to try to save the goddess of death from the hell, and she essentially opts to stay down there, and he leaves. So a lot of people think that's sort of what this song is signifying, is like the Lord of Woe tried to reach out to Morrow and tried to do his thing and bring her back to him, but she was kind of stuck in her ways. So he instead is just like moving on to better and brighter days, and we will kind of have to see, I suppose. It's yeah, like I said, it's a bit too early to say. So I'm very excited for this record when it comes out.
Of course, of course. And we'll move on to this is more the Lord of Woe EP, the first track, like you mentioned, Summoning Storms. Does this have any lyrical significance in comparison to Old Souls, or are these kind again, like you said, are they split in terms of timeline?
Uh, all of these, all the EP songs don't really have any direct impact on the Old Soul
Okay.
storyline. It's much more. It's just like describing the pain that the Lord of Woe is feeling. So it's all written from his perspective, and they're all like really vengeful, really hateful, and all this stuff. So
Okay.
they're yeah, they're pretty much just there to raise the question, like, who made him this way, and like what's the backstory, what's going on here.
So do you think that, I mean, we don't really have to delve into it like you said because you kind of answered it. Do you think that they are going to take the perspective of like how that they got to this point, and maybe Ether is kind of the starting point of, how the albums will progress, or am I thinking a little bit off a little bit?
Man, that could be. It's very difficult to say. I
Yeah.
I do think Ether is going to start to explore something new. So I don't think it'll be because so far Old Souls and Neverbloom were parallel cycles of the same sort of pattern. So they're both just following the path of this, Lord of Woe. But yeah, it looks like Ether's about to depart from that, if I had to guess.
Okay, so we'll move into the like pros and cons of the album. Again, we definitely mentioned storytelling. I feel like that is a key point in this whole album EP split sort of a thing. They did an amazing job at just writing tracks that really get your mind going and thinking about different things. And there is like a Reddit community that does, sort of dissect all the songs. And I highly recommend, if you have not listened to the band, listen to it, read that stuff. I feel like you'll get a lot more out of it in terms of, lyrically, and just more significance based. If you enjoy that sort of like storytelling, I guess moniker sort of a thing, then I feel like this will be right up your alley. Do you have any other pros to add to this, Paul?
Um, oh man, I mean, instrumentally, I think each member of the band is extremely masterful at what they're
Oh
doing.
yeah, of
So
course.
yeah, but yeah, lyrically, as you're saying, obviously they do a lot of layers and so much forethought put into every record, every song. But the vocalist Sean used to on his Facebook page have this like long note that was essentially like a legend for the map of the album,
Oh wow.
Never Blue, and it had like all these symbols and what they meant and specific passages and songs and whatnot. But I think he's since taken it down. But I believe there's a copy of it floating around on Reddit somewhere. So if you just search "Make Them Suffer" in the deathcore subreddit, I'm sure
It will
stuff will
come up,
pop
yeah.
up.
Um,
Yeah,
but again, like you said, they're very masterful at their craft. I also feel like, as you mentioned, I feel like the piano added with their heavier elements. I feel like that's a nice
hmm
juxtaposition between like there are some like lighter, eerier elements, and then when you get that heavy like sort of guitar, bass, drum,
yeah,
instrumentals, obviously, I feel like that kind of adds a whole nother level. And then you add screams and a little bit of cleans. I feel like that's cool, as well as like the playoff between a female singer and a guy screamer. I feel like that's
yeah,
something that, I mean, there are a lot of bands that do it, but I feel like in this sort of like culmination of the whole band in general, I feel like they're kind of like a one of a kind sort of band in terms of, just the balance between sort of heavy stuff, clean, a little bit of cleans, and then instrumentation, obviously. Me
yeah,
personally, I'd like to see a little bit more cleans, if maybe like added on top of the, like, layered a little bit better. I feel like
yeah.
that would just open up the floodgates in terms of just musical um,
Totally.
prowess for sure. I don't really have, personally, I don't have any cons. There's a lot of cool things about this band and the albums that they've done. Um, Paul and I'm sure we both recommend checking out Never Bloom. I have
Oh
not,
yeah.
but I'm definitely gonna go check it out after this because they kind of roped me in with Old Souls and this whole EP album sort of a thing. And I can't wait to see what they do next. I think you've gotten me way hyped on this band, but hey, that's
Good.
okay.
Awesome.
What would we rate this album? I mean, I know it's older stuff and it's already been out, but what do you think
hmm
would be a good rating? Um, I feel like in terms of, I mean, it's not a new album, so I wouldn't really say it's album of the year in that term, but I feel like again, it's up in the top registers in terms of great albums. Um,
Yeah.
but again, because this is sort of older stuff, like revamped a little bit. I don't know if they really did anything in terms of like mixing or mastering. I think they pretty much kept it the same.
Yeah, they just kept the same masters and
Um,
mixes.
but I would definitely give this. What do you think, Paul? What do you think we should give it?
So I'll be very biased here, because both Never Bloom and Old Souls are in my top 5 albums of all time. So I'm pretty biased there. But I will say, and I really like Ether,
Yeah, I do
but
as well.
I wasn't as big a fan of the old Lord of Woe EP. I think the lyrics are pretty cool, and it's obviously got some really biting parts, but also it was sort of before they'd hit their stride, in my opinion, and they knew mostly what they were going for, and they had a vague idea of the concept that they wanted to pursue. But I think Old Souls by itself gets a 10 from me, but if it's the re-release package that's
Plus
got
Ether, yeah.
the EP on it exactly, I'll call it a 9.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna give it like an 8.7 because like lyrically, I've only listened. I mean, album wise, I've only listened to this one. I have not listened to
Yeah.
Never Bloom, so that I feel like again that's that sort of element that's missing, that I can't appreciate yet because I have not listened to it. Also, I forgot to mention this. To me, I know it was their first kind of album or EP, but I feel like after you listen to Old Souls and then you listen to Ether, that's real cool. But then like Lord of Woe comes in and it's a little bit rough in comparison to
Yes.
like you said. I feel like they didn't hit their stride at that point. I feel like if maybe they swapped the order, they put Lord of Woe
Mhm.
first, then they put maybe Old Souls, and then they put Ether at the end. I
Yeah.
feel like that would have fit a lot better in terms of just the progression of their sound. And obviously, if they could have put
Totally.
Never Bloom on there, that would have just been the cherry on top. But
Yeah.
I really personally enjoyed it, so I would definitely give it an 8 out of 10, 8.7 out of 10.
Mhm.
I really did not know the sheer amount of lyricism between, this album Never Bloom and I mean Ether is kind of like a new thing. They might be just
Yeah.
turning a leaf and moving on, but I definitely dig what they're doing, and I'm stoked to hopefully be able to see them. The closest date that they're coming to is Long Island, New York. So me and my
Oh,
good friend are going to be driving like 2 hours to see them. So possibly.
nice.
So hopefully,
Dude, I'm seeing them on the 19th in
oh,
Indianapolis.
you're hyped.
Finally,
I'm
yeah.
excited to see that. So
Yeah.
again, thank you, a massive thank you to Paul for being
Anytime.
on this. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate helping me out at least, and definitely check out both of his bands, Wise Man Fears and Whalebones. I know we say it a lot, but they are the homies. So go check him out. And now you know because
Thank you.
he's in the flesh and he's on the thing again. So hopefully we'll have some new stuff with him in the future. Maybe the rest of the guys. Who knows? We were
Yeah.
actually. I have a funny bit before we kind of end it, and Nathan and I were supposed to do some funny thing, but because of time things and it was being the last day of your guys' tour and stuff like that, it was tough to do. But hopefully, when you guys roll around the next time, we can do some funny hilarity stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
Nathan said you
Fun.
guys are always down for that sort of like stupid stuff, so I feel like that would be great. Also, make sure to go subscribe to both of their YouTube channels, Whalebones and Wise Man Fears. I know Whalebones is going on tour very soon. They're gonna be touring the West Coast, so if you live in the West Coast, go check them out. They're kind of like indie rock kind of stuff like that. So if you like that sort of stuff, it's right up. It should be right up your alley. As well as we have a huge thing. We need to get to 100 subs. We are only, I think, like 8 away from 100 subs.
Ooh.
So please, 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 please help us get to 100. We're gonna be doing a
Okay.
giveaway, and we have some special prizes to give away, which I'll make a video for separately. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. It helps a lot. Hit that thumbs up for Paul, and all of the homework he kind of did for us on this. I appreciate it a lot, and hopefully we have some new stuff. I know I'm going to be working on the new Color Morale album. I've gotten about like
Mhm.
3/4 of the way through, and it's way better than I expected it was gonna be, and I had some pretty low expectations. So I'm excited to review that one. I will be having a Bad Omens review up, and you're gonna have to check that one out because I'm not gonna spoil it because it's bad, but and lastly, we're gonna be doing a newer kind of undergroundish band. They're called Wander. They're out of Maryland. They're kind of like indie rock. They kind of remind me of Transit, and they're kind of filling that gap that Transit had on Rise. If you're familiar with Transit, check them out. Wander is amazing. I think it's WV because they had to change their name. But I'm excited to do that one. That one should. I don't know if I'll try to do it tonight or maybe tomorrow. We'll find out. But anyway, that's pretty much like the new stuff that we're gonna be doing and in the works. So thanks again, Paul. I don't know how many times I have to say it. You're the homie. So
Dude, right
I don't.
back at you.
I
Thanks
don't.
for having me.
I don't care what Tyler says about you. You're the homie. So
That makes like 7 of us. 'Cause no one else in the band cares.
So anyway, again, check out his bands, Whalebones, Wise Man Fears. I'm gonna promote the shit out of you guys because you're my bros. So
Appreciate it.
that's it, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.